Everyone, Couch and Keyboard back. This time talking about a little bit of Smash Ultimate. Now, over the weekend, I was watching some smaller tournaments because after Genesis, some things weren't quite as big. I noticed in Europe there was a pretty notable double upset with a Ridley beating Siski, a very good Samus from Europe, I believe Spain. And so I was like, this guy Mezcal is pretty good at this game. I'm curious though, are they the best Ridley? And I kind of went through that, and I think it's a pretty interesting discussion because I would not say there's a clear cut like best Ridley for history along with current. I think these six are pretty solidly top six. There's been a little bit of fluctuation here and there, but for the most part, these are the players. And they are from the U.S. is Smub and Rydra. Then you have Mezcal from France, Nair from Mexico, and then in Japan is Karinku and Monai Goma, I believe. And so I knew some better than others. So I went to Shoe Stats on Twitter to get kind of an idea, and I think is pretty helpful. So I noticed Nair used to not be on here. This is Key, a pretty good Ridley from North Carolina, which I was pretty familiar with. That's where I'm from, and I believe from like Wilmington, like eastern part. So I had to travel over to Raleigh some to get some more activity and all that. But yeah, so I was like, I've definitely seen Nair in brackets, but not being in top six, pretty surprising. And then later, Nair caught up, and it kind of stayed in that top six. So when I learned about Nair, is a little bit more historic, to where Meister, Siski, also beating Siski, pretty surprising. Dark Wizzy, a bunch of other wins in Mexico, along with coming to America a little bit. But has not been traveling very much due to inactivity. Mostly wasn't on the last one. You can see back in like 2023 went to Gommel, got some good wins here and there, but has mostly stayed in Mexico. And I was like, I thought that Mexico was a pretty good location because you're not that far from a lot of places, but I did realize, thanks to the map right here, that the closest like bigger city is San Antonio, because Nair goes to a weekly in CDMX, Mexico City, and that's 16 hours from San Antonio, and a lot of it's in Dallas Fort Worth, and even Texas is not that huge. You have Houston and Austin and all that, but like you can't just drive over the border super easily and go to that. I know some people. I think Spargo's from Baja California. I know that's where Eddie Mexico, the Melee player, he was able to go to SoCal pretty easily over here. But a lot of people are in kind of this like central Mexico area. And even though like Latin America is good at Smash and it's like not bad, you're gonna stay fairly isolated and not really get to go that close to a lot of places without having to fly or drive a long way. So probably fly. So Nair, there's Smash Factor. There's a couple other things here and there like monthlies, but generally is not going to get as many opportunities. I mean, Spargo, Leo, Meister's less active right now. Sonic will sometimes go. Like I know Toon is getting up there whenever Toon travels to Mexico, but Nair doesn't get as many opportunities, even though it has a peak of a really good ranking, being number 120 in the first half of 2024. Not not super consistent right now. Not entering as much. Starting to get it back. Chag win, some other smaller wins here and there, but overall, Nair is having some difficulty getting those results. But still solid player. Definitely could see a comeback there. Now, the next highest pretty consistently seemed to be Rydra getting, or I guess most recently was Rydra getting passed up by Mo- Monaigoma. I'll go over those two real fast. So Rydra is from Colorado, which is on this map. You can see Colorado, central, kind of western. Not that far from Texas technically, but it's a long way. And if you can tell, like kind of isolated. If you go based off of football, Denver is like 500 miles away from their closest opponent, like the Broncos, and so it's pretty isolated. So you have good competition in Colorado, but it's hard to get to other places. You maybe go Pacific Northwest, you go California, Midwest, Texas, maybe Southeast, but like you could travel. Utah has a decent scene, maybe Arizona, but like it's pretty barren. So like you might have a smaller group that is pretty good. I mean, has farmed a lot of wins off of let's see, who is it? Lifetime against Kronos. Very good. Snake. Pretty good. I forget if it was Smash Con or Supernova at the time, but pretty good. Tons of wins on Suspect and Shu. Has some good wins. Has been going a little bit of Falco some. But overall, I mean, Cola win in the last year, pretty good. But I think is kind of isolated. Being top 150 North America is good, but I think it is difficult. You have to make it really count, and sometimes it's hard. I do think that Ryder is solid, but seems like doesn't quite have the clear cut. Like a Cola win is great, but it's not going to carry you entirely because there's a lot of upsets in top level Ultimate. So the next one is our first Eastern Hemisphere representative so far, and Monaigoma. Now Japan, ton of good players, especially the ranking is starting to skew towards Japan, which is fairly deserved. They are good players. But the potency of players here really helps. And Monaigoma enters a lot. And just gets, has multiple top 100 wins, top 150 wins, and like has stacked up some solid Japan ranked wins. If you want to call 124 through 143, like those are solid wins. Certainly very good players. But, good. I think that the peak is not as strong as Rydra. I mean, she is a good win. Umeki, a household name if you go back to the Smash 4 days. But yeah, and so I think that activity has really helped Monaigoma go up, barely passing Rydra in terms of this. This isn't a perfect system, but it's at least something, and I appreciate it. It kind of helps give some kind of idea of what we're looking at. And so these two solid players starting to kind of break away from get closer to that 1,000 range, and so like doing pretty good. I wouldn't be surprised to see these players have success in the future, but it seems like top 3 is pretty solid, and there's even some divisions between these top 3. Now, Smub, I am a Smubber. I am big on Smub. I remember first started entering like 2021, wasn't like that good. I think that some people like he won like a small weekly back when like first started coming off of lockdown. People thought he was kind of overrated. Then he like didn't do as well, and then he started grinding, getting super good, and then like became one of the best in the region. I think still goes to GMU, at least is around that Nova area. Has a lot of players there and is pretty close to a lot of things. Like Nova is a pretty good place to be. Just a lot of activity. Not quite what it used to be, but still really strong. Being near DC, being near kind of that lower part of Maryland is good place to be. Has a lot of activity. It's been traveling more as well. Cav Clash has started to get bigger. That's in Charlottesville, which is like Nova's like right up here. You kind of have this area here, and Charlottesville is like right around here. And so it's like Central Virginia. You have Southwest, Southern, which is really Southeast, and you have Central, and then Northern. So it travels down about an hour and a half, 2 hours to Charlottesville, and it's starting to become pretty big. Didn't have the strongest cap class recently, but has gotten a lot of opportunities at these tournaments across MDVA, and also travels to Patchwork, goes up to North Carolina, right around here, goes up to Tri-State, went to Let's Make Big Moves. There's also stuff in Midwest over here, kind of like Eastern Midwest. You can go down to Georgia, Florida. Like, there's a lot of opportunities if you're willing to, drive or maybe a quick flight. You can go to a lot of these places, and so start to travel more. And I think that SMUB, I'm biased because I really like SMUB, I think has the most potential. And maybe you disagree, but I mean, I remember back when SMUB beat Teaser, really good Samus that was terrorizing Georgia at the time. Beat Mutace like really early. I think this was like after Mutace got like second in Genesis. Beat a certain band Luigi twice at a small tournament before SmashCon, which is like, whoa, that's pretty surprising. And just was doing super solidly in region, beating pretty much everyone, making some people very angry. But he was doing really good and getting super, improving a lot. Seems like a meteoric rise. And, like, yeah, not the strongest, but I think Let's Make Big Moves really woke people up to where it's like, okay, like, this guy can do anything. So, benefited from a DQ over Syrup, but beat Atada, who not as strong this season, but still a very good player. Beat Andric, who is from Mexico, likely has Nair experience. Did lose to Aloe, which is frustrating because he has a K-Flock win, no 0-0. And this Spargo set was electric. One of the best in the world, former number one. This set went the distance. I don't think Game 5 was like super good, but like those games leading up to it, I think Smub was up 2-0. Like Smub was doing good, and Spargo I think is from Baja California, so probably doesn't have as much experience in like the more central Mexico part. But I mean, Spargo is Spargo. Like he's good at so many matchups, and yeah, Cloud is gimpable. Ridley has good edge guards, like that kind of stuff. But like Smub was just playing super well. Has a ton of Cloud experience in region, and if this win had gotten through, I mean, I think Smub stocks are through the roof. And so Smub just getting a lot of opportunities is really cool to see. I think by data is probably not best Ridley, but I think it certainly is in that potential conversation. And it can certainly keep going. Maybe has a good supernova, maybe goes to, Collision, maybe something else. Like a lot of opportunities there. And now, sometimes some sets aren't super close. At this Cav class, lost to Zamba kind of badly, which Zamba, super good run at Genesis, and lost to In Regions D, which Bulbul Bob people know is very good. But I do think Smub has some potential. I'm rooting for Smub. Smub's my favorite. I don't like the skin he uses. I think that the Devil Ridley is pretty ugly. But besides the skin, I do really like Smub. And hey, Black History Month, gotta represent. Shout out to Smub. I think the conversation for best Ridley is probably between the top two players. And I mean, based on stats, sure, it's a pretty big jump. But Karinku is very interesting to where enters less than Monai Goma does, but is certainly still very good. Ranked top 100 in Japan for multiple years now, and has a decent amount of wins. Win on Rocky, very good. They both have wins on Mark the Yoshi, so I think maybe they just, I also have a win in the Ditto. I would, as a Yoshi main, I wouldn't say Ridley is a terrible matchup. But speaking of that, I do think one thing that is helping Smub, I forgot to mention, is there's a lot of Ridleys in the area. So if you go, there was, I don't know if Exception's still on the list, but Exception was from my city. Shout outs. There's also Yoshi Boy in Virginia Tech. So like both Southwest Virginia, kind of Lynchburg, kind of closer to Central. Um, Not a ton of crossover, but also there's Fool and Richmond. There used to be Iota. And Kripuba got that fatality win at Supernova, and then even Key is North Carolina. So there's a decent amount of Ridleys in the area, so people know the Ridley matchup kind of well. Not maybe not everyone, but like there's familiarity with Ridley, and the more you play a character, the more you start to kind of expect what is coming. You're not going to get totally surprised. I mean, that's like people playing like Isabel or Duck Hunt for the first time. Like it's like I've never played anyone that can do half of these things, and it's like I think that those characters are probably a little bit more complicated than Ridley, but like you're more surprised. Like Smub can just like completely blindside someone from out of region. Or from a different region, but like there's familiarity in region, and Smub has still stayed very solid. Um, I know that hasn't quite been as strong in region recently, but is still like starting to really to sharpen his skills and starting to be a even smarter player, and so I think that does lend to the skills. That does also have to relate having two solid Ridleys, which with even another Ridley pretty close by, Yamagon, and like I mean a lot of Japanese Ridleys like there's going to be familiarity. So if there's familiarity in the matchup, then you're going to have to adjust and not just depend on lack of matchup experience. But yeah, I think that Karinku definitely has a lot of potential. I think that being solidly ahead of Monaigoma, which I'm only looking at wins here, there's also losses and placings and attendance and all this kinds of stuff. Even though Monaigoma has more of these kind of like notable wins here, I think that Karinku is still doing very solidly. And it's not necessarily always a 6-month period that you're looking at. Sometimes it's a year, sometimes it's more recent for seeding. But Karinku is really building up a consistency there. Not necessarily a household name, but is definitely a threat in bracket. I think Karinku is definitely pretty solid. I think Smub has more potential than Karinku, but I mean, sometimes Japanese players just really turn it up and start beating 3, top 50 players, and boom, they're just there. So like, Japanese players have so much opportunity, and I think if they can really figure it out, get a good bracket, then things can really help out. But I think the confirmation was Mezcal is probably the best Ridley. I think socially, it's really been, since Nair stopped entering as much, it's been Mezcal and Smub. Those are kind of the most visible Ridleys in a lot of ways, especially Smub getting a lot of screen time at majors and stuff. But Mezcal is just good. I mean, being one of the best in EU, even single digits in number 8. Solid France player as well, which France is a lot of the EU, to be fair. There's Bloom in UK, there's Siski in France, but generally, I mean, there's a lot of, like, look at all these notable wins are all French players. And so I think France is kind of similar to a lot of these more isolated, to where, like, not super far from a lot of other places in Europe, but France is like the most stacked part of Europe, at least that like Western Europe part. It's a lot of times people come to France, which is fine. I mean, there's Gluto, there's Crepe Soleil, like even Susu and Kid and Impopo are on the rise. Like, it's not a bad thing to be there. But is doing very well against Siski. I mean, before this weekend, I think it's a little weak. Crepe Soleil is a little bit more beatable than they seem to be, but double eliminating Siski, very good. Grands was not very close against what it was a Archior. Went Sora. I think also has a Greninja. But like that, sometimes if someone's confident in the matchup, has a pretty good counter pick, things can happen. But I think double eliminating Siski after Siski had a pretty solid week with like the Invitationals and then Genesis and all that. Like, I think it's very impressive to see Mezcal be so consistent. And I mean, Lifetime has 4 Siski wins. Has Ludo wins? I I don't know if Gluto went Link here. I mean, I think maybe character data is kind of difficult. I forgot about Tarek from Germany, also being very good. Um, and even Lukey has also been up there, but yeah, it's not loading. Sometimes it takes a while to load, but I think that Mezcal, I think with those two Siski wins, is solidly in the lead for best Ridley right now. I certainly think that Smub could turn things around. The Japanese players have opportunities. Nair and Rydra is they don't have as many opportunities. They're still in strong regions, especially like Mexico is very strong. But I do think Mezcal is slightly in the lead, but it's pretty close. I think for a lot of characters, it's like huge gap, and it's like the one player is like so far ahead of everyone else, and then it's a pretty big drop down. Not a ton of characters, but like a decent amount. Ridley is there's no like okay, number 74 I think is the highest rank, which is good, but it's not like it's like that like top 30 kind of thing. So I think it's really interesting and really is being seen more commonly. I think that it is still competitive. I think sometimes there's like a lot of infighting between the mains instead of like working together. You see people like the Steve mains and like if you work together with your mains, I think you can really like push things and advance. Sometimes there's a little bit of like kind of like local scenes where you care more about your local head to head and the local rank instead of growing together as a sub region or whatever. But I do think it's interesting to see. I think Ultimate has so many characters, so it's interesting to take a random pick. And it is funny that Ridley beats Samus. Is like the main thing about this video that stands out. So I guess Ridley is pretty strong after all to beat old Samus. But yeah, no, I definitely want to see. I'm hoping Smub will take over and be the best Ridley, but I think that there's a little bit more to do in terms of catching Mezcal, and can't forget about Japan. Both these players from Japan are super solid, but it's gonna be fun to see. And I mean, who knows? You can even have Key start doing better, and anyone else in this list. I mean, there's a lot of players like that are not that far away. Like you could definitely have some people turn it up, and I think that Ultimate right now is it's not what it used to be, I think, but it's still pretty healthy, and there's a lot of players that are good, and I'm excited to see. Really is fun to watch, not fun to play against, but fun to watch, and I think that it could be pretty cool to see, some Ridley shaking it up. So, all right, thanks for watching.